morning. What's going on, guys? We are continuing our, we're almost up to 10,000, 11,000 miles, something like that, on this extended unit in R9 cross-country round-trip. We've done a lot, crisscrossed the U.S. and Canada, and now we're coming back south from Washington State through Montana and Iowa on our way through Utah, Moab, which will be our second penultimate stop, and then finish up with Phoenix and wrap this trip up with about 10,000 plus miles. And we've really got familiar with the unit in R9 and how well it's doing, and just a fabulous radar detector. And frankly, when we do our review, it's basically, I think, the best radar detector in fact, I don't doubt it. It's the best radar detector, hands down, that I've ever driven with. Just an absolute brilliant radar detector. We'll prepare some more content when we get back. Make sure there's another firmware that we incorporate that in. I think they're going to get it in about a week or two, so it's getting close. So if you want one early, be sure to visit RadarBusters.com and place your order. We're taking deposits for 100, and then the balance when we start shipping, and that'll be after they go through a QC. They're going to definitely go through a quality check before all these bad boys get shipped. So we just did a video encounter of 4 passes to KA33 at MPH, and it brings to mind another topic that I'd like to briefly touch on, and this one's going to be shorter, and that is the value of displaying the frequencies. There's a mode on unit and detectors and others like escorts that allow you to display the frequencies of Ka band. And that's important, and it was demonstrated in this last video. It's a long one, but there are 4 encounters, and it gave a good example of why it's worth putting display frequencies as a mode or as a feature enabled on these radar detectors. Now, typically, these newer radar guns have both front and rear facing antennas. So it's possible that an officer can clock both directions of travel. They can do that. And what happens is there is often a separation of a little bit of a reported frequency. So just for example, this last one, we picked up a 33. It goes out to 3 digits, 33.774 gigahertz to 33.775 gigahertz. That little 1 megahertz change, that can be the same frequency. It's just a slight variation of how it's being detected. However, if you pick up an additional frequency that is, let's say, separated by 8, 5, 10 megahertz, which would put it like at a 33.784, for example, that could indicate a second radar source, whether it's, in this case, in the case we just had, possibly 2 different radar police, since they were running together, or the front antenna. So it lets you know, it's another way to confirm one of 2 things: that there's definitely a source up ahead that has both front and rear antennas running. So it tells you that they're clocking both ways. So if you just happen to be running ways and the police officer's marked on the other side of the road, you can do that, and it won't alert you in ways because it's on the other side of the road. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're vulnerable for a police clocking. So just be mindful of that. And in this other case that we just had today, there were 2 officers. One was facing one direction, one was facing the other. They were probably shooting it talking and hanging out together. They do that sometimes. but then they can both be operating radar. And why it's important is if you saw one of those encounters, one of the officers left when we were passing, and we assume, and rightly so, that he had picked up and got a speeder and then went on his way. So when we came back and it was just the one remaining officer, and in this case that last pass he was facing away and he was running IO, we got a frequency of I think 774, 33 774, 33 775, which is MPH 33.8, some variation there, and we kept running with the detector and kept recording because we were getting a tremendous detection from the back. So we wanted to demonstrate also how well and how strong a dedicated rear antenna with the unit in R9 is relative to, let's say, an R8 or an R7 that has a different horn, or different. It's all the same, but one facing and one rear. So when you have one absolutely pointing, it's almost like you got a front one. It is like you have a front one from coming from an away source. So, and what happened? We were driving, it got quiet, we kept running the detector and the video to see what happened, and sure enough, we picked up another frequency. Same 33.8, but different frequency from the 774 and 775 that we were picking up from that one in the median that we passed. So by knowing that there was a frequency change, sufficient frequency change, we were clearly alerted to the fact that that was a different source than the one that we had passed. So here's an example for the more advanced radar detector who wants to be able to analyze or have more information to what's going on potentially with more than one officer and more than one encounter. And that happens. You can pass one, you think you're clear with a radar, and you keep going, and then there's another one down the road. Sometimes that's because they're running together, and then one runs and gets one. Then you come across the one, and you think you're clear, and then the next thing you know, there's another one. So you could be at risk for that. So we strongly recommend utilizing that feature. Most radar detectors do use or have the ability to display frequency, and I'd learn more about it if you're not really familiar with it. Again, there are 3 primary radar guns in the U.S. that operate on the super wide KA. That's the Stalker on 34.7 center frequency, MPH, which we've been seeing a lot at here in the Northwest, at 33.8 gigahertz, and then the custom signals, which is at 35.500. That's when they're dead to their center frequency. But again, they can vary a little bit by frequency, so you'll know which gun you're encountering. There's one other interesting benefit potentially when you're looking at KA frequency numbers. We talked about some of them, but here's another one. Let's look at the Stalker 34.7. Typically, the front-facing antenna is north of the 34.700 center, and the rear-facing, just using this example, is on the south side of that. So if you're picking up a frequency that's higher than 34.7, it's indicating that it's quite likely that you're facing the front of that vehicle's antenna, which means if that arrow is coming from the front, it's likely that he's either approaching you or he's targeting with instant on or up ahead stationary, and you're coming nose to nose with him. If you're seeing the higher side of 34.7, again, just using the Stalker 34.7 gun as a case, Stalker Dual, it's likely indicating that if you're getting that rear detection, that he could be coming up from behind you as opposed to going away from you, which could generally mean the frequency is going to be lower than 34.700. So that's just something to keep in mind. One little bit more of fine little detail to know about the type of encounter that you may be facing using the frequencies, the display on a unit like a unit in R9 or R7, or even the single antenna units. It's going to help you even without the directional information. It can help guide you as to what you're potentially encountering, and if you don't see the police officer yet. So anyway, just one side note about Valentine. He's never opted to put in a frequency display on KA. Many years ago, early 2000s, I was speaking to one of their engineer guys. I had visited and got a nice special tour of Valentine. They don't generally do that, and got to know one of their engineers. And one of the questions we used to talk, he had asked me, what do you think about, should we put a display on our unit with frequency? And at the time, I basically said no. I mean, you have your detector. It's been, configured this way for many years. You're successfully selling it. You've got your arrows, which are the big center point on your detector with signal strength. So do you really need to do it? You need to re-engineer and put some kind of display on there. And then they have a bogey counter, which in effect, even though these other detectors have it, it's pretty clear, if you pick up more than one bogey, that it could be another source. If you're detecting both sets of, or three sets of frequencies, or four potentially, from up to two guns that are running. So if in this case we lost the one, but then we picked up the other, the Valentine would still show one bogey. So you really wouldn't necessarily know. There is a solution for that. There's a JBV1 app that is on Android. You got the V1 Connection app from Escort from Valentine that's on iOS as well, and there are some others. And then you have to run that on your phone and pair it to Bluetooth, and then you can get that additional information on your phone. But that application has to be running, whereas it's nice that feature is built into detectors like Whistler, Escort, and of course Uniden. So that's the reason why it's there. I strongly recommend. Look, if you're into these realms of high-end detectors, you're probably going to be at least a more experienced, or will soon be a more experienced radar detector user. And it's just information that I think you should have and be taking advantage of it. And these are the reasons why. So anyway, that's this topic. Hope it was informative. Again, the link to that extended encounter is going to be below, so there will be a great demonstration of what we're talking about here visually in the real world. And thanks for watching. Be sure to visit RadarBusters.com. Get all the Uniden products, Escort, Whistler, all the leading detectors. A lot of more information on RadarBusters. Be sure to subscribe to the newsletter. We send out information from time to time that can be helpful, sales and other things. Be sure to visit us on Facebook. As I say, we're slow to get off with utilizing that platform, but we're starting, and we'll have some content up there that's unique. Be sure to subscribe. We'll put these videos up as we come up with topics that are relevant based on our driving encounters. Give us a ring, set that bell, and you'll be quickly notified. So again, thanks for watching. Be safe driving, and take care. God bless.